Another woman who talks an awful lot of sense. Belinda De Lucy is here, former Brexit Party MEP. Belinda, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike. Thank you for having me on.
Not at all. So nice to see you. Now, as if the world has not gone crazy enough, and as if there are not enough words that we cannot any longer say, there's a whole new slew of words that we cannot any longer say, including blind. Apparently, it's not nice to say blind. I mean, I find that extraordinary.
Look, the way I see it, Mike, is everyone should be free to use whatever term they like to describe themselves. I object to this morality brigade that goes around trying to replace perfectly harmless words with more gentle, inclusive words, and then uses it as a stick to beat the British public with.
Yes.
And wants to put people into groups. So the group that says blind is somehow, bigots and probably Brexit voting scum. And then the group says, then the group that says visually impaired is somehow righteous and more holy. And it's just this nasty way of dividing people again. I mean, goodness me, we've had it with women, Mike. We're constantly getting told, be offended by non-inclusive words. That the fragile doll-like structure of a female simply can't take words like history and management and amen and constantly telling people they should be offended by these nasty words. It's creating a fragile, panicky climate where most people are good. They don't want to offend anyone, and yet they're going to be demonized for slipping up or getting it wrong.
And also, it's not conducive to conversation. I mean, one of the great things about coming out of this lockdown is that we can all meet and have conversations with one another. You know, I've been doing it, obviously, because it's what I do for a living. But, you know, people have missed the art of conversation. And when you're so busy trying to work out what word you can say, you can't even make a sentence work, can you?
No, and also I feel really sorry for the elderly as well, because these words keep changing so much. I mean, look at BAME, for example. Last in, now it's out. The woke eat the woke all the time. It's the woke cannibalism, by the way. It's one of my favorite things to watch. But you know, these words are now suddenly unacceptable when they were acceptable a year ago. How are 70 and 80-year-olds supposed to keep up with all of this, with the quick moving nature of all this sort of inclusive language? And why does language have to be inclusive if it's not?
Right. Language is surely an expression of all sorts of things, and you can say things in certain languages which make absolutely no sense when they're translated literally in English. You know, one of my favourite things to do is to tell people about my natural affinity with Hungarian swear words, because I used to work in a Hungarian bakery as a child, and the way that you insult people in Hungary is very, very different from the way that you do it here. And if you translate it into English, it makes it sound ridiculous, and it's very funny. But in Hungarian, it's really horribly rude.
Yeah, I mean, most people mean well. I just think small militant groups of wokey kind of student types, they're so desperate to have a career and a platform. And the only way you get it now is with the currency of victimhood or the currency of being offended. And really, we should be teaching our young to have thick skin, be resilient, and understand why people use certain terms, put them into context. You know, society rejected the N-word quite rightly because the word is steeped in harm and hurt. But the word blind, I mean, that doesn't have a history. It has never been used as a derogatory term, famously. So these innocent, harmless words keep getting replaced by who, Mike?
Yes.
This is the
Yeah, but that's the other thing. I mean, you talk about the N-word. The N-word may have been put into disuse and disrepair by people like you and I. But if you're a rap artist, you know, you can say it any number of times you like in a 3-minute rap. And you can keep saying the N-word over and over and over again, and that's fine, because apparently it's your word. So that's a bit confusing for people as well. And this organisation, Leonard Cheshire, that I hadn't heard of until now, which is some kind of charity, right? How about this for confusion? You can't use a term such as able-bodied anymore, and it should be replaced with the word non-disabled, right? So if you don't have a disability that's physically visible, you could be non-disabled. However, we keep being told that not all disability is visible. So how do they know that I'm non-disabled just by looking at me? How do they know that you're non-disabled just by looking at you? They say you cannot call people able-bodied because just because you're disabled, it doesn't mean that you haven't got an able body. I mean, I don't know if you can make any sense of any of that.
And I also think that disabled people, the last thing they probably want is being, pitied and having eggshells around them all the time, so that the public, you know, are too frightened to even talk to them in case they get the term wrong. Or, you know, if I was to bump into someone at work and I said, "Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't realise you were blind," and then suddenly got because I used the wrong term.
Right.
this is where it leads. So we just have to resist, Mike, and make sure, female language is being erased out of maternity bills at the moment. And all these terms that are non-inclusive to trans are suddenly being weaponized now. And it's frightening. And we just have to resist and say, no, harmless words need to stay. And charities, they go woke, they go broke.
Yes.
They really need to be careful about being too judgmental and like the moral police against normal, decent, ordinary Brits who sometimes may slip up because they haven't been on Twitter the past 24 hours.
Well, yeah, what am I going to tell my 97-year-old mother next time she says to me, I know when I say to her, how are you doing? She's like, I'm blind as a bat, which she says quite often on a regular basis because she doesn't see very well. And one of her eyes is almost completely not working. But, I'm not going to say, you can't say that. It's not fair to bats.
I know. I think you have to keep making programs like yours, Mike, so that people are just really aware. You are not a bad person if you use the term blind, okay? And people who want you to feel bad about yourself for using the wrong terms have an agenda.
Yes.
And the agenda is to completely deactivate your agency and make you feel so ashamed of who you are that you actually don't feel like you have a voice. So there is an agenda behind it all. I think we need to draw the line at replacing words. And
also, what do I say to some of your former colleagues who you and I both know occasionally get blind drunk? I mean, how do you describe that?
Exactly. And my dad always says, I'm deaf as an old goat now. And he is actually, he's got hearing aids everywhere. And he loves people treating him like a normal human being, not like a fragile, person who can't take non-inclusive words. We don't want to build a generation of people like that.
Well, this is another one, right? Avoid phrases like suffers from, which suggests discomfort, constant pain, and a sense of hopelessness. Well, I don't know. I mean, if you're suffering from cancer, I would suggest that you're probably not upset about the fact that somebody's not describing you the right way. Are you?
No, people have bigger fish to fry. They just want to get on with life and stop being told they're bad people all the time for not keeping up with a minority of woke extremists. And yes, if you're suffering cancer, actually the raw description of what you're going through is important so people can appreciate, that what you're going through is severe. I mean, but it also has a very sinister side, this sanitization of language to make it inclusive and less offensive. Look at the term grooming gangs. Who the hell made that term up to describe a nasty bunch of child rapists who kidnapped and tortured little girls?
Yeah.
It sounds like a blooming mobile hairdressers group. And also you look on Twitter and you look at even paedophiles are renaming themselves because they don't like the term. They're naming themselves MAPs now, minor attracted peoples.
Really? Oh, God, I didn't even know that one.
This is where it leads, Mike. Yeah. Trying to make all language non-offensive so it doesn't offend anyone creeps into the dark criminal world. So people who commit atrocities get their crimes sanitized through language. Yeah. So actually it is important that you're bringing this up. We just need to, and all it takes is just resisting and common sense talk like the show you've got.
Yes, absolutely right. Now, talking of common sense, Belinda, and I certainly don't wish to buttonhole you as somebody who might have been able to spend a few quid on some rattan furniture. What do you make of what's going on in this Downing Street refurb story? Because I think it's a big story for a lot of reasons, mainly because I don't think that's the kind of money the Prime Minister should be spending at this particular time. Secondly, I don't think that the Prime Minister should be able to withhold information about who has maybe loaned him the money. But I mean, seriously, $30,000 a year is not enough to refurbish a 4-bedroom flat? What's going on?
Well, I actually do have rattan, but I got it on eBay secondhand, and it's really good.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that Carrie's selling off all the old John Lewis stuff that Theresa May put in as well. So if you keep your eyes open for that.
Well, listen, this might not be a very popular belief, but having been in the EU Parliament where billions go missing, literally accounts don't get signed off. The way our MPs behave, they're like saints in comparison. And yes, this may be a slip up for Boris, but I'm rather forgiving of him, even though I didn't vote for him in the election. This poor man has had a new baby, pandemic, Brexit, the unfriendly EU, so many things in his first term. I think I can cut him some slack for slipping up a little bit now and again. There's no manual on how to govern a country in a pandemic. I disagree with a lot of his policies, but think about it, Mike. If we wish Boris gone, be careful what we wish for, because the replacement is more likely to be a Dominic Grieve, a Philip Hammond, an Anna Soubry type.
Hey.
Because
Oh, no, you've really frightened everybody.
I'm just saying, you know, there aren't a lot of Boris. Westminster has always loathed Boris. They've always wanted him out. It was the people and the Brexit Party that put Boris in there. And actually, the more Westminster tries to do someone down, the more likely he's going to appeal, or she is going to appeal to the British public. Yes, he's made mistakes. I don't like his green policy and all this environment talk at a time where people are just trying to, you know, make ends meet.
Yes.
But the alternative, I really think, is going to be so much worse. Would I rather him stay in? Absolutely. And if it means coping with some ratty furniture that he got someone else to pay for, I'm willing to put up with that.
Even a Nureyev trolley?
I mean, yes, remember the expenses scandal with the MP spending money on a moat.
I remember the moat house, yeah.
I mean, but again, compared to what we experience in the EU and the abuse of expenses there, you know, that they're like saints in the UK. They're never perfect, obviously, and we must always hold Boris to account. Really important.
Yeah.
But I think he's the best of a pretty, you know, bad bunch at the moment.
That's a very sensible thing to say. As ever, common sense personified. Belinda De Lucy, thank you very much indeed, former Brexit Party MEP, and a woman who is absolutely the sort of person you would want in the government. You know, I wish we had a proper government filled with people filled with common sense rather than one we've got. You know, I'm perfectly capable and perfectly happy to defend some of the stuff that Boris Johnson has done. I just think he needs to come clean on this whole subject to get it put to bed once and for all. Otherwise, it'll be like one of those running saws and people just keep picking away and picking away and picking away. And eventually, it'll get to the point where he just has to go. That'll be what happens. 0344 499 1000 is the number. We'll take your calls next on Talk Radio.